My name is Valerie Knox. I'm 46 years old, a night shift nurse in Tallahassee, Florida, and I've never told anyone this story in full. But I think it's time. 18 years ago, on a muggy August night, I found a baby. Not at the hospital, not at a church or a fire station. He was just lying there, alone. In the hallway of my apartment building, wrapped in a faded beach towel, like someone had just come from the pool and changed their mind halfway through raising a child. And I did something I wasn't sure I had the right to do. I picked him up. Before I take you back to that moment, please, if this kind of real emotional story means something to you, hit that like button. Subscribe if you want more stories that dig deep, not just for revenge, but for truth, for reckoning, for the justice we rarely get in real life, but sometimes we make ourselves. I was 28 at the time, no kids, no husband, a quiet one-bedroom on the third floor. I worked 12-hour shifts at St. Luke's Medical, cardiac unit. And when I say I was barely scraping by, I mean some weeks I stretched peanut butter on a saltine and called it dinner. My family was, well, let's just say I didn't grow up thinking love was dependable. My mom ran off when I was 10. My dad was more into Jim Beam than he ever was into birthdays or report cards. So when I opened that stairwell door around 2 a.m., exhausted, sweaty, from walking up 3 flights and saw this tiny shape on the floor, I thought maybe I was hallucinating. He didn't even cry at first, just blinked. Big eyes, quiet, like he'd already learned the world didn't care what happened to him. I remember thinking, God, this baby's eyes look older than mine. He couldn't have been more than a few weeks old. No note, no name, just a blue pacifier clipped to his towel and an empty formula bottle tucked beside him, like a last offering. I stood there for a full minute, frozen. Then my nurse instincts kicked in. I checked his vitals. Warm, breathing fine, no rash, no bruises. And then I did what most people probably wouldn't. I brought him inside. I know what people say, you should have called the police immediately, you could have gotten into legal trouble, but I couldn't hand him over. Not yet. Because something in me cracked open. Like this tiny human had been dropped not just in my hallway, but into the one place in my life that was still empty. I called in late to my shift the next day, took him to the ER where I worked, told them I had found him, CPS got involved, the whole drill. But somehow I got certified to foster him temporarily while they searched for next of kin. They never found her. No one ever came. And 6 months later, I adopted him. His name? I called him Micah. Raising Micah changed everything. I picked up extra shifts, cut coupons like it was an Olympic sport, sold off the last of my mom's costume jewelry to buy him a secondhand crib. But he was mine. He was a serious baby. Not fussy, just thoughtful. When he started talking, he asked questions like, why do birds leave home if it's warm there? Or, if someone doesn't want their baby, does that mean the baby was bad? I never sugarcoated things. I told him what I knew, what I didn't. I always said, you weren't abandoned because you were bad. You were left because someone else couldn't see how good you are. And he was good. Lord, he was good. Honor roll in middle school, played trombone in band, never got in trouble. Well, okay, he did try to dye his hair green once in 9th grade, but we don't talk about that era. I raised him alone. No dates, no distractions, just me and Micah and an endless rotation of shift work, science fairs, and Saturday morning pancakes. Sometimes I'd catch other moms giving me that look. You know the one. Like, Poor thing, doing it all on her own. But I never felt poor, I felt full. I didn't even realize how much until she came back. It was senior year. Micah had just turned 18. He was prepping for graduation, and I was sobbing over his baby pictures like a lunatic with a glass of rosé and a heart full of memories. That's when I got the letter. No return address, just my name scrawled in fine blue ink on the front. Inside was a single page, typed. Cold. Professional. It said, "To whom it may concern, my name is Genevieve DuPont. I am the biological mother of Micah DuPont, born August 17th, 2007. I am formally requesting to establish contact and explore custody and legal parentage. Please direct all further communication to my attorney." I must have read it 10 times. Genevieve DuPont. The DuPonts. The DuPonts were old money, real estate, private equity. Their name was on 2 university libraries and a children's hospital wing. And this woman had left her baby on a hallway floor. Now she wanted him back? At 18? For what? Some late-in-life conscience project? Micah came home from school to find me white-knuckled at the kitchen table, staring at the letter. He read it once and didn't say a word. Then he walked over to the trash can and dropped it in. But it wasn't over. Not by a long shot. 2 weeks later, we got served. She was suing for retroactive custody rights, claiming she had been coerced by circumstance and that her original abandonment was the result of postnatal mental illness exacerbated by domestic violence and economic instability. She had documentation, therapy records, court affidavits, a high-profile lawyer from Miami who specialized in complex reunification cases. And suddenly, I wasn't just mom, I was a footnote, a speed bump on her redemption arc. The case moved fast, too fast, and Micah, my sweet, steady Micah, was caught in the middle of a media frenzy he never asked for. We walked into court that day hand in hand, but I felt the tremble in his palm. He was scared. I was furious. And she was flawless. White designer blouse, silk scarf, spoke with the calm, rehearsed empathy of a woman who'd spent years convincing people she was misunderstood. She called him my son. She called me the guardian. And when the judge asked Micah, "Who do you identify as your true parent?" I braced, because what if after everything, he wanted her? What he said next, it left every single person in that courtroom completely speechless. The courtroom was so quiet, I could hear the rustle of the bailiff's sleeve as he shifted in his chair. Micah stood in front of the judge, hands at his sides, his back ramrod straight in that ill-fitting suit we'd bought from Goodwill and tailored ourselves. And when the judge asked him who he considered to be his true, legal, and emotional guardian, he didn't hesitate. He didn't glance at me. He didn't look at Genevieve. He just said, "I don't need to think about that. She's my mom, Valerie Knox, the woman who found me when no one else did, the one who stayed." My breath caught in my throat. Genevieve blinked, but her face stayed smooth, too smooth, like she'd expected this, or had a plan for it. The judge nodded and made some note on his pad, but I didn't hear the rest of the proceedings. My heart was too loud in my ears. I reached for Micah's hand when he returned to his seat. He gripped it tight. But I knew this wasn't the end. Genevieve wasn't letting go, not without one hell of a fight. We thought it would stop there, that maybe, just maybe, a courtroom declaration would be enough. It wasn't. Within a week, her lawyers filed a new motion. She wasn't after custody anymore. She wanted guardianship rights and access to his educational and financial records. And here's the kicker. She offered to pay for his entire college education, but only if she was listed as his legal mother on official documents. He didn't even hesitate. He said no, loud and clear. But that's when the guilt games began. First, it was letters, handwritten in blue ink on ivory cardstock. Always the same perfume, something expensive and cloying like powdered lilies and money. She wrote about the dark time she'd been in when he was born, about the hole his absence had left in her life, about how no day had gone by that she didn't think of him. Micah read the first one, then folded it up and set it on the counter. He didn't read the second or the third, but they kept coming. Then came the gifts. A new iPhone left on our doorstep with a ribbon and a note that said, "Just in case you ever want to call." Sneakers, a watch, a leather-bound journal with his initials engraved in gold. He didn't touch any of it. Until one night, he did. I came home late from my shift, 3 a.m., bone-tired, smelling like antiseptic and bad coffee, and I found him sitting at the kitchen table with that journal open. The watch was on his wrist. He didn't look up when I walked in. "Hey, Ma," he said quietly. "Did you know she had me baptized before she gave me up?" I froze. No, I didn't. She wrote about it in her last letter, said she took me to this old chapel in Savannah, said she thought that would protect me. Can you believe that? He let out a sharp, bitter laugh. Abandon me? But hey, at least I've got holy water on my side. I sat down across from him, trying to keep my voice steady. "You okay?" He shrugged. "I don't know. I think I just want to know why. Why now? Why me?" And I didn't have an answer. Because honestly, I was asking the same damn thing. I thought I knew what she wanted. A second chance, a photo for her fireplace, maybe to ease her conscience? But I was wrong. A week later, I got a call from one of my coworkers at the hospital. "You see the paper today?" she asked. "No, why?" I was halfway through pouring coffee, my eyes still gritty from sleep. "There's a full-page ad, front of the lifestyle section. It's Genevieve DuPont." My stomach dropped. I drove straight to Publix, grabbed a paper from the rack by the registers, and flipped to the page. There it was. A glossy photo of Genevieve in a white summer dress, seated in a manicured garden, smiling gently beside a headline that read, "After heartbreak, one mother's journey to reclaim the son she lost." The article painted her like a saint, how she'd battled depression, how she'd made the impossible choice to walk away for his safety, how she'd prayed for the day they'd be reunited. They didn't mention me at all, not even once. Just a foster situation that later evolved into an informal adoption. I stood in that grocery aisle shaking, gripping the paper so tight my knuckles turned white. I don't know what snacked in me, but I drove home, stormed up to my apartment, and tore that paper straight in half. Micah wasn't home. He was at the library. But when he came back, his face was pale. "People at school saw it," he said, voice low. "They're asking me if I'm gonna go live with her now." I said, "What did you tell them?" He didn't answer right away. He just looked tired, like this thing was chipping away at him inch by inch. I said, "Do you want me to back off?" I asked, quietly. "If this is something you need to figure out." "No," his voice cracked. "God, no, Mom. I don't know what she wants from me, and I hate that some part of me even wants to know." Things got worse from there. Genevieve showed up at his graduation, uninvited. She wore pearls and a wide-brimmed hat and cried into a tissue like a woman in a soap opera. Even tried to pull him in for a photo. Micah stepped back, said, "Please don't make a scene." But she wasn't listening to him, really. She was posing for the people watching. After the ceremony, she cornered me in the parking lot. She said, "I'm not the villain here, Valerie. You think you've done something noble, but all you've done is steal what's mine." I looked her dead in the eyes. "You abandoned him. I found him. That baby was on a cold floor with nothing but a pacifier in a bottle, and you think you get to rewrite that?" Her jaw tightened, but she didn't answer. She turned and walked away. But I knew it wasn't over. And I was right. Last week, Micah got a certified letter from her lawyer. She was offering him a trust fund, $250,000, on one condition: he legally change his last name to DuPont. He didn't say anything for a long time after reading it. Then, in the quiet of our kitchen, he said, "She's not giving me that money to help me. She's doing it so she can tell herself a story where she didn't leave me, where I chose her." I nodded. "You don't owe her anything." He didn't cry, but I could see the hurt all over his face, the pain of being wanted too late, of being treated like a loose end someone finally decided to tie up with a bow and a bank account. And then, he said something I wasn't prepared for, something that sent a chill down my spine. He said, "I think she's hiding something. I think she didn't come back because of me. I think she came back because she's scared." I blinked. Scared of what? Micah looked up, voice steady. "Of what I'll remember." When Micah told me he thought she was scared of what he'd remember, I didn't know what to think. He wasn't the kind of kid to say things just to stir drama. If anything, he held back more than he should. But the look in his eyes that night, it wasn't angry. It was focused. Like something had been trying to surface for years, and now it finally had a crack to squeeze through. I didn't push. I just said, "Okay. If anything comes back, we deal with it together." He nodded, but I could tell he was already piecing something together in his mind. A week passed. Micah got quiet, spent a lot of time in his room, kept a notebook tucked under his pillow. I didn't snoop. It wasn't my place. But every now and then, I'd catch phrases written on napkins or the back of receipts. Savannah, blue house, ivy wall, long hands, piano, man with a red tie. Then one Saturday morning, he came into the kitchen with this stillness about him. Not cold, not angry, just calm. "You need to ask me something," he said. "Okay," I said, setting down my coffee. "Do you remember if I had anything with me when you found me, besides the pacifier and the bottle?" I paused, thinking back. "There was a little fabric scrap tucked in with you, looked like part of a baby blanket, but it was frayed, almost shredded." His eyes lit up. "Do you still have it?" "I think I kept it in your baby box," I said. "It's in the closet." He didn't say anything, just disappeared down the hall. 30 minutes later, he came back holding it like it was radioactive. He laid it on the table and said, "This used to be bigger. I remember lying on it. I remember music." "Music?" He nodded slowly. "A piano. And someone yelling." The next week, Micah asked to take a trip. Just the two of us. To Savannah. He didn't know exactly what we were looking for, but something inside him did. We drove 6 hours, booked a room at a cheap inn off East Bay, and on the second day, walking through the historic district, Micah stopped dead in his tracks. "There," he whispered. "That's the house." It was tucked behind a wall of ivy, old wrought iron fence, blue shutters cracked from time. It looked abandoned, but there was a mailbox out front with a brass nameplate. Dufort. Not DuPont. "Different spelling," I murmured. Micah stared. What if Genevieve changed her name? We stood there for a long time. Then I took his hand and said, "Let's find out." Public records showed that the house had once belonged to Carolyn Dufort, Genevieve's mother, a retired music professor. She'd passed away 6 years ago. But the bombshell was that Carolyn had custody of a child from 2007 to 2008. Court documents proved it. Micah. Not only that, but Genevieve had been listed in a court petition during that time as an unfit parent. Micah sat in the public library, silent, just staring at the page. She didn't give me up because she loved me. She lost custody because she was dangerous. My hands were shaking. You don't have to go further, Micah. We can stop. But he shook his head. No. We need to finish this. Back in Tallahassee, he hired a lawyer. Turns out, since Micah was now 18 and the trust offer had been tied to his name change, he had legal leverage. The court couldn't force her to give up the rights to the money, but they could allow him to petition for the truth to be entered into public record. And he wanted that truth. He filed for a court declaration of full parental alignment, meaning he wanted all public records, including his birth certificate, to list me, and me only, as his mother. When Genevieve got served the notice, she flipped. She filed an injunction, then held a press conference, painted us like liars trying to rewrite history. But she didn't count on Micah remembering everything. Not just music, not just a house, but a man. His real father. The man with the red tie. Micah's lawyer tracked down records from the Dufort household. There had been a restraining order issued in 2008. Micah had been found in a car, alone, in the middle of a parking garage. Genevieve had left him there. Her boyfriend at the time, a man later arrested for fraud, had been with her. That was why she lost custody. That was the secret she'd buried. And that was what she was really afraid of. That Micah's memories would flood back in a courtroom on record. She tried to settle, offered $500,000, then $1 million. Micah refused. He didn't want her money. He wanted people to know. The day we went back to court, it was cloudy and drizzling. The kind of day where everything smells like wet concrete and old trees. Micah wore the same suit, the same watch she'd given him, but this time, it wasn't for her. It was a reminder, a symbol, proof that she could no longer buy him. When he took the stand, he didn't yell. He didn't cry. He just told the truth. About the music, the piano, the man with the red tie, the fear. And about me. How I'd held him through night terrors, taught him to ride a bike, waited outside every class play with flowers, even when I was dead on my feet from working 12-hour shifts. She never gave me up. She chose me. Every single day. And that's what makes a parent. Not biology, but showing up. Genevieve didn't speak. She didn't even look at him. The judge ruled in our favor. Micah's birth certificate was amended. My name, mine alone, was officially listed as his mother. There were no headlines, no photographers, just quiet and peace. For the first time in 18 years, I felt like I could finally exhale. Life moved forward. Micah's now a sophomore at FSU, studying psychology. Says he wants to help kids like him figure out their own truth. I still work nights, still drink too much gas station coffee, but now I sleep easier. Because I didn't just raise a good man. I helped him reclaim his voice. And when I watch him laugh with his friends, or talk about research, or text me just to say, "Love you, Ma," I realize something. She tried to make him a story she could live with. But in the end, he told the one that set us both free. Thanks for listening. I never expected this story to be ours, but I wouldn't trade it for anything. Sometimes the best revenge isn't slamming a door. It's standing in the truth so solidly they can't rewrite it. If you've ever had to fight for your place, your voice, or your family, I'd love to hear your story. Drop a comment below, like if this hit home, and don't forget to subscribe for more real stories of justice, healing, and the power of showing up, no matter what.